Hello everybody, happy Sunday and happy solar eclipse. Virgo solar eclipse was this afternoon, 3:55 p.m. Eastern time, my time, so somewhere in the afternoon here depending on where you're located. And happy equinox to all of you as well. So yeah, the eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo means that the sun moves right into the equinox. Talked a lot about all of that on the weekly video. So that came out yesterday. If you haven't seen that already, go ahead and take a peek at that. And then the intention always comes out Friday ahead of the weekly video. So that way you can take a peek at that too. And, you know, I always say that I hope you get really good things out of our meditation here, right? Together, and the things that I say and the things that come up during the silent moments of meditation. But if you sit with that intention, if you sit with those words, even though this is not the only intention you could come up with, just like you can have 10 different delineations for any one transit or different ways that it can play out, you could find, you know, at least 10 different intentions that would be appropriate or applicable. But these are the words that come through in this space for this meditation. But sitting with those words on your own and just seeing what comes up, seeing what feelings come in for you, any thoughts, any emotions, anything that it makes you want to move towards, move away. There's a lot you can get from that. Any feelings, any anxieties, any excitements. So I'm going to go ahead and put up our intention for this week, with that being said. So whether or not this is the first time you're hearing this, here's our intention, and let's go ahead and sit with it now for just a moment or two. There is space to commune with spirit. There is space to commune with spirit. So sitting with these words quietly for just a moment, just seeing what, if anything, comes up for you. And I'm going to go ahead and start by saying that this is an intention that we can hold all the time, right? I suppose that could be said for probably all of the intentions and the phrases, because they are meant to move us, I don't know, usually into a positive manner, in a positive direction. So I think they're all good reminders, and that's, at the very least, that's what the astrological transits and placements can be for us. I don't necessarily look at the astrology as being causal, so I don't think, you know, what Venus and Uranus in the sky are like causing things to happen. I don't think they're causing disruptions in relationships and causing things to change and, you know, radical surprises to come through, but they do symbolically paint a picture of the different things that could be surrounding us. And it paints a symbolic picture and acts almost as a mirror of the different things that could be happening here, which is why you get many different possibilities and many different options, right? But when we spend time with the astrology and what's going on in the sky, it it allows us to create a relationship with those energies that are around us and contemplate and bring in an invitation to consider these different things at that moment, right? So at the very least, the astrological placements and transits are an invitation to think about these things that are probably things we could be thinking about all the different times, right? But when the sky is mirroring what is going on here at the earth, as above, so below, right? That type of mindset and thinking. And if you're here in this space, I'm thinking that you're at least somewhat curious about that. It invites us to just consider what is going on. And then move in accordance, or have a little bit more conscious relationship, or just moving more awarely, things like that. And then on the extreme end, they can predict very concrete things that are happening within our own lives. Again, that does not mean that the astrology causes it. It's a mirror, and it's a representation, and it's a archetypal, metaphorical description of what could be happening here on earth. And then that plays out many different ways, which is why I don't think it's causal. If it was causal, then rather than more divinatory and more sign-based and message-based, then I think we would have like one thing, right? Like Venus and Uranus means that relationships are ending. Kind of like that. So yeah, this is our intention for this week here. And again, it's something that we can have all the time, but with all of the different shifts and changes that we have this week, I think that this one is really, really appropriate. So carry it with you all the time, just like all of the intentions, and just like all of the aspects are things that we could be considering all the time. This is a moment where we're giving a specific special invitation to consider these words and these intentions here. I'm taking a look in the comments. Hi guys. Hi Mary, Melissa, Kevin. Good to see you guys here. Happy Sunday, happy eclipse, and equinox blessings to each of you too, please. So yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up here. We'll take a peek at that like we've been doing for a while. Like I've said before, if it's overwhelming to look at the chart, look away, listen, take it in bite-sized pieces. I just think that when we start to, the more we look at the chart, the less scary it is. So take that in whatever piece that it works for you. So we're first going to bring our attention here to the sun and the moon. And they are all the way over on the right side of the chart. So if we back this up here, so this is the chart for the moment. I always start there. So we see that we have Aries rising for just a little while. It's going to move into Taurus. But if oh shoot, my mouse, okay. Bear with me for just a second here. If I go ahead and back this up a couple hours, we will see that we have Sun and Moon coming together at 29 degrees of Virgo. This is our solar eclipse that came through this afternoon. And by now, if we bring it back to the moment, Moon has already moved into the sign of Libra. So tomorrow, the Sun is going to move into the sign of Libra, and that is going to bring us our equinox moment. So we have the solar eclipse starting out the week. It's a new moon, but it's a new moon that's within the space of the south node. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we have both the sun and the moon instantly changing signs, coming from Virgo into the sign of Libra. As the sun crosses over that marker into the sign of Libra, which it will be doing by tomorrow. Here we go. We see the sun at 0 degrees of Libra. This brings us our this brings us our fall equinox moment here. So we have a shift within the seasons. The fall season is coming here in the northern hemisphere, as well as within the solar story of the sun throughout the zodiacal wheel throughout the year. So these are the two major shifts that we see starting here right at the beginning of the week. We move from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year. We have a solar eclipse on the south node. And then as sun moves into the sign of Libra, it's going to start interacting with in a trine through the other air signs. So if I move this forward just one more day, we will see the sun at 1 degrees of Libra, trining Uranus at 1 degrees of Gemini down here in the 3rd house, and also trining Pluto in the 11th house at 1 degree of Aquarius. So you see you have this triangle shape, or the trine aspect here between these planets. This is going to be carrying us through the week here, and this is a pretty powerful energy as well. If you look up in the 8th house in this chart, you will see that Mars has ingressed into the sign of Scorpio. That comes through Monday into Tuesday. So we have several shifts here, as well as a grand air trine that is activating here this week. I want to make note that Mars moving from Libra into the sign of Scorpio is a dignity change, and it's putting it in a much better condition than it was in the sign of Libra. So the Mars being in the sign of Libra is opposite its place of Aries. You can see that in the 1st and the 7th house here in this chart. So if if Mars is in its rulership in Aries, then it's in detriment in the sign of Libra. So it's been in a difficult place. We've talked a lot about that in the last several weeks. Now it's moving into its own domicile. It's moving into a place where it has a lot more power. So these are the things that we're talking about here this week, which is quite a bit. It's kind of a lot going on here at the same time. If I back it up here to the solar eclipse to the time now, You can see with the way this chart is set up pretty clearly that the sun and moon are sitting in opposition to Neptune and Saturn. You're across a couple sign boundaries, but we're just within a degree or two. So that solar eclipse that we had today was sitting in opposition to Saturn. Right before the lunar eclipse that we had in the sign of Pisces at the full moon 2 weeks ago. It was just days before that that Saturn moved into the sign of Pisces. So these eclipses have had a lot of Saturn mixed in them. So that means that if you are a strong Saturn type person, Saturn ruled, or you have things at these last degrees, chances are that this eclipse is lighting something up for you, amongst lots of other factors too. There's within all aspects, you know, it has a lot to do with your own personal placements and things like that, and houses, how loud the houses are, what other planets you have their placements, that always plays a key into things. But the solar eclipse is a new moon, right? Solar eclipses are always new moon, so you always have this new beginning, or this initiating or the seeding moment, but they have a much longer span and a much longer longevity than a regular new moon. So the new moon takes us through a lunar cycle, which is just under 30 days, right? It's like 29 and a half days for a whole lunar cycle. These solar eclipses, at the minimum, they have a longevity span of 6 months that takes us to the next approximately 6 months that takes us to the next eclipses. If you look at 9-year intervals, you have the nodal flips. So if you look 9 years back, you will have the south node in the sign of Pisces and the north node in Virgo, where we have the opposite right now. If you look back, or either backwards or forward 18 years, then you would have the nodes in the same positions that they are now. So you can look at these eclipses in much longer cycles and spans than the regular lunar eclipses. So there's history, there's future, and there's a process, right? So it's a process that's oriented in initiating in the sign of Virgo. However, it's sitting on the south node here at the same time. So there's a new beginning, but there's some sort of release or some sort of history or something that has already been there in the background that is coming forward, and something new coming from that. It can be something that we're releasing, something that has been around that we need to let go of, that we need to shed to be able to move forward, or it could just be something from the past that is coming forward that has, you know, that we kind of thought it was in the past, but now it's coming back forward, something coming back up, or and that could be to either reinitiate something or to create something new, or spark or highlight or illuminate something, but it can also be to release something too. So maybe it's illuminating something that is holding us back from the new beginning, or maybe it's something that's coming forward to help us within the new beginning. Either way, like that. Sitting in opposition to Neptune and Saturn brings in the intention here for me of communing with spirit. So there is space, or invitation was another word I was looking at, to commune with spirit. That is our intention for this week here, right? So when I think about communing with spirit, I think about communicating, talking with, having some sort of relationship, kind of like we do right here on this meditation. I feel like this is a space where we come to commune with the energies that are around us, and with the astrology and the planets, and, you know, the gods and the goddesses that they represent, and the energies in our own lives, and all of these things. Neptune and Saturn are both planets that, when they are activated to me, can have a lot to do with communicating and relating to spirit. And when I think about relating to spirit as a whole, as a, you know, as a grand, like, overarching topic, I just think of non-physical energies, right? Like when you think of communing with spirit, the first thing that might come to my mind might be God, creator, source, things like that. But spirit can also be communing with other spirits that are around, if that is part of your belief wheelhouse, you know, so ancestors, loved ones that have went beyond before us, guides, angels, messengers, you know, any of that you subscribe to can be held here within the concept of spirit. Our own spirit, our own essence, our own soul, our own higher selves, we can commune with that as well. Saturn and Neptune are both planets that feel like they reach into that spirit realm for me. Now, we often think of Saturn as the planet that says no, boundaries, limits, things that hold us within boxes, right? Which is all true. That is all very Saturnine things, because Saturn is the farthest most out visible planet. Before the outer planets were discovered, Saturn was the farthest one out that sat on that boundary between what can be seen and what can be unseen. So you can think of the material world and then the energetic world at the same time. So when you're sitting on that boundary, when you're sitting on that barrier, you're in a space where you're in the physical, but you're communing with something that is beyond that. And to me, that is spirit. Neptune, we associate very strongly with otherworldly connection or intuition or getting messages or downloads and intuitive things coming through here. So that's a very Neptunian thing within its own right. And Neptune in the sign of Aries can be very, very, what is the word that I'm looking for here? Very, very strong within its beliefs, very convicted within its beliefs and the things that it's connecting to. So we could be connecting with our own spirit or other spirits or just the spirit, right, the great spirit creator, on many, many different levels here. And maybe it's initiating something new, initiating a new energy coming through or a new connection within some way with spirit. So what is the spirit that you are communing with right now? Is it yourself? Is it your higher self? Is it God? Is it source? Is it some sort of guider that you have on the other side? What is the spirit that you can commune with right now that can lead you into this opening of the solar eclipse? I think we are all within our own way invited to do that here with this eclipse energy. The eclipse being at 29 degrees brings in another level of symbolism of a beginning, a beginning within an ending. So it's kind of like the South Node thing where, we may be releasing something to have a new beginning. Maybe there's something that has come to its full expression. There's been something that has completely served its purpose, so now it needs to fall away, or we need to let it go, or something is ready to move to the next level. There's some sort of mastery that is being shown there. So then we're at the highest expression, right? We're at the last degree of Virgo here before we move into the sign of Libra. And then we look at Virgo within its own right, and we look at the fact that Virgo stands between the gateway of the light half of the year and the dark half of the year. It's an earthly sign, so it's practical. It wants to organize. It wants to be rational. It wants to bring in things that are physical and tangible and that are going to get us through the dark, because we don't know what's coming in the dark half of the year, right? The harvest is coming. Has enough abundance grown within the light? Do you have enough resources within the light to get yourself through the dark? At the same time, in the sign of Virgo, you have somebody a space that's sitting right on the edge of moving into the darkness, which moving into the darkness is not a bad thing. It's moving from light half of the year, maybe the masculine half of the year, into the feminine half of the year, into the slower, more receptive, and maybe a little bit more reflective half of the year. Dark does not necessarily mean bad. It doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean any sort of connotation like that. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I think good and bad and like good and evil and all that is a very relative term to a lot of different things here. So Virgo sits on that boundary between moving into the darkness, but still being strong within the light, right? So you have this initiation into something a little bit deeper, maybe something a little bit darker, a little bit more hidden, or something maybe just a little bit more mature. When you think about the dark half of the year, you could think about when we talk about like morning star phase versus evening star phase for planets like Venus or Mercury. We talk about the morning star, which would be like the light half of the year, being more youthful, exuberant, ambitious, outgoing, where the evening star is a little bit more receptive, a little bit more inward. It's a little bit more experienced. You know, we've been through life. We've been through things, right? Virgo's at a space where we are being initiated to life, and maybe to the hardness of life that there is, because life is not all light, right? There's light and dark, and it's an interplay of both. But Virgo being exposed, being at the precipice of being exposed to that dark, and often being exposed to things that are a little deeper, a little bit heavier, but still trying to keep that childlike wonder and that connection and that ability to commune with spirit. Keep that space, that no matter what is coming forward, whatever comes through from the dark, you know, where can you keep that connection with spirit, whatever that means to you? Where can you just keep that connection either with the higher source and the creator and, you know, the highest expression of whatever spirit means to you? Or can you just keep that connection within that light within yourself here? You know, think about how Virgo comes after the sign of Leo, where we've cultivated that light, the place of the sun, and we found that light within us. Can you keep that as things start to shift and you come into the space where things aren't quite so solid, the sun is not as consistent as it was? Can you hold that within yourself? That can be the space that we're communing with spirit too. Can you keep that connection open with yourself, or whatever of the level of spirit that you have here? Whole lot of energy within this eclipse. Saturn can really just be a reality server, so it can really feel like there's a tug and pull between you know, the practical and the imaginative. Saturn's in the sign of Pisces. There can be a tug and pull between the rational and the emotional here, and even though it feels like we're on the precipice of big things, it can also feel very overwhelming at the same time. However, Saturn, when we are working well with Saturn and we are abiding by whatever Saturn is putting in front of us, we can create things that have longevity. We can create things that stand the test of time and have a maturity and a level of growth within them. And then the sun moves right into the equinox moment. So we move right into the fall equinox through tomorrow, Monday, September 22nd, and this is a sacred moment that tethers our Western zodiac within its own right. So there are a ton of celebrations when it comes to the equinoxes and the solstices. Many traditions that look at them, we mark our seasons by them, and the astrological wheel is no different. It's no less important within the astrological tradition, especially the Western tropical zodiac. We do our zodiacal wheel is not changed or altered by the procession of the equinoxes, right? So if you look at the sidereal zodiac, the sun is in a different location than what we look at within the Western zodiac, right? So you may have seen, like, I've seen things on the internet where it's like you used to be a Taurus, so now you're an Aries or something like that, where it shifts based on the precession of the equinoxes. That's not the case with the Western zodiac, because we tether our zodiac by the equinoxes and the solstices. So it begins at 0 Aries with the spring equinox that comes in March, right? So our zodiacal wheel always starts there. It always starts with that comeback of light coming back into dominance. And the entire zodiacal wheel and the symbolism and the traits and the significations that we get of all of the signs is all based on that quality of light. I've talked a lot about that, and I have a lot to say, so they're probably not going to, I can't get into all of that right now, but I've talked about it before. It's all based on the interplay and the alternation of light and dark. Are we in the light half of the year? Or are we in the dark half of the year? Are we in the light half of the year where light is gaining, or are we in the light half of the year where the light is starting to slip away? You know, same thing with the dark half of the year. Are we in the dark half of the year where dark is gaining, like Scorpio, or are we in the dark half of the year where light is gaining, like Aquarius or Pisces? It tethers it tethers the zodiac, as well as colors everything that we have astrologically here. So it's a very sacred, symbolic moment and turning point within many traditions and within our astrological wheel. So we move from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year here. So you get this moment of pause, right? You get this moment of pause at all of these pivots. So think about like when you like when you're walking someplace and like you're walking down a hall and you turn a corner. When you get down to the end of the hall, you may stop for a moment and just kind of like see what's down the other hallway before you zoom around. So you may like go to the end of the hall, stop, pause, pivot, look, assess what's down there, and then keep walking, right? And it might not be that exaggerated, but we do it even just within milliseconds when we're walking someplace. You get the same thing at the solstices and the equinoxes here. The equinoxes, so the beginning of zero Libra and 0 Aries, those are the equinox moments rather than the solstice moments. The equinox moments give us equal light and equal day. The solstices give us our longest day and our shortest day of the year, right? So within the symbolism of the equinox in itself, I think about the equalness and the leveling of light and dark. And when things are balanced like that, you find yourself in this middle place where you can almost literally or symbolically walk in between things, right? You're not teetering either way. And this is symbolic of moving into the sign of Libra, the place of the scales too. So when things are even keel and we are in between equal light and equal dark, equal masculine, equal feminine, or however you want to look at it, I wonder if that puts us in a space where we can relate to spirit and connect to spirit even more so, or maybe even more easily, or it just feels like it flows a little bit naturally there. Because for me, when things are balanced, when things are level, that's when it's the easiest to connect with whatever it is that I'm trying to connect. It's easiest to keep a level head. It's easiest to whatever the thing is, right? And instead of when you're like teetering all the way, to like the longest day or the shortest day of the year. Not that those are not important moments too, because those are very sacred within their own right too. But as far as looking at our intention this week of communing with spirit, finding ourselves in this leveling space, it feels almost like a little bit of a buoyancy where you can tread water and stay just above, just enough to where like the water kind of levels a little bit and you can see all that is around you and connect with it there. So yeah, things to play with this week. Moving towards the dark half of the year not only gives us this moment to pause, but it pulls us into that slower, more receptive yin, feminine type energy. So there's a surrender, there's a release, there's a letting go, there's a softening. You can think of like the night sect being ruled by the moon, being feminine. The night sect is that if we have, when you're looking at a birth chart, if the sun is below the horizon, it's considered to be a night chart. If it's above the horizon, it's considered to be a day chart. And you have those masculine and feminine qualities within those charts, as well as like the masculine and feminine planets. So the night planets, more feminine, ruled by the moon. You have Venus there. You also have Mars there as well. Where in the day sect you have the sun ruling it, right? So the sun considered to be more masculine, more solar, more of that yang type energy, and the moon is yin. It's the feminine energy, right? So you see that symbolism of that feminine energy coming through here quite a bit. And then this grand air trine that we have coming through here, there's a lot this week. I'm trying not to talk too terribly much, but there's a whole lot going on here this week, guys. This air trine that's coming through here as the sun moves into the sign of Libra. So think about this path of the sun here, right? The sun has a lot going on this week, and we saw this with Mercury last week too. So you have the solar eclipse with the sun. The sun is releasing something and getting a new beginning and a new release here. But it's getting this new starter, this new initiation as it's initiated into the dark half of the year, where it's asked to slow down, where it's asked to surrender, where it's asked to maybe look a little bit deeper here. Okay, and then it comes into this grand air trine with Pluto and Uranus at the same time. So that air element is on fire here. The intellect, the way we communicate, the way we process things in our mind, messages, downloads, information coming in. Think about communing with spirit here on that one. There is a mental connection with a grand air trine. And with the sun coming into this trine, this grand air trine with Uranus, which allows it to think differently, maybe consider different ideas, maybe move a little bit more boldly. Both Pluto and Uranus can both bring in lots of courage and lots of bravery, while the trine to Pluto reaches deep, reaches down into the subconscious, reaches into things that maybe we haven't explored before. Maybe we haven't quite had the courage or the bravery to explore these things before. So as the sun is initiated into the dark half of the year, it's given this mental ability or fortitude to connect. I keep thinking about like being plugged into a circuit and having your mind opened up and expanded into ways where you can bring in more information and more opportunities and, you know, more courage and the ability to dig deep within, and maybe in ways that we've shied away from before here, and really being able to connect to some sort of network, some sort of mental network. So maybe we're connecting with others, maybe we're talking with others and coming up with new ideas, but maybe within that mental network, maybe we're communing with spirit in some way. Maybe we're communing with our own spirit and the greater spirit that is around us. Thinking a lot about Uranus here and the mythological story of Uranus stealing fire from the gods, bringing it to mankind in the form of information, technology, intellect, understandings. I feel like there's a lot of ability for that. And with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, you have this kind of 1,000-foot view of air allows us to detach, but I feel like Aquarius allows you to, with being air and being Saturn ruled, allows you to step away and look back at the whole picture. Consider all parts, consider all the people, all the different things, and want to bring all of them in. So, new beginning, pivot moment, plugged into a circuit. Mars moves into the sign of Scorpio, digs deep within, empowers us, and comes into a square with Pluto. So there's this deep-seated power with Pluto being interacted with a couple different ways this week here. Digging down into the subconscious, digging down into the underworld, digging down into that space where we need to slow down and we need to look a little bit deeper to be able to see what is below the surface there. You know, when we slow down, going into the underworld does not necessarily mean that we are, you know, like we're going into the gates of hell. It sure can. It could mean that you're going into things that you just want to keep locked away. But it can also mean slowing down and moving into that subconscious or that unconscious or just the energies and the thoughts that we don't always process all the time or just make space for. We all live busy lives, right? We're all going 100 miles an hour and doing things all the time. And we often will use busyness to distract ourselves from our mind, right? Often we will talk about being like trapped within our mind or wanting to escape our mind, or it's when things slow down and we're home and we're, you know, resting for the evening that the worries of life start to peek back into our head where you're busy with the events of the day. You might not necessarily think of it. But it's when you slow down that those other things that aren't quite in your perspective come in. And then what messages can they bring? What lessons can they bring for us? What communing with spirit can those things bring with us when we slow down? I think we're giving lots of ways to slow down but connect deeply at the same time here. Maybe assess the issues, maybe assess the struggles that Saturn is bringing in here, and then move forward with that. Yeah, super powerful week coming through here, guys. Super strong and powerful. I feel like I could just keep talking about this. In our Our intention feels so basic. It feels so straightforward. There's space to commune with spirit. There's always space to commune with spirit, right? We can always slow down and connect with ourselves if we give ourselves the space to do so. We can always slow down and find a moment to stop and to pivot, right? But this week we are given the opportunities in the invitation specifically to slow down. And when we slow down and move into these pause moments, that's where the magic can be, right? When you pause in between your breaths in meditation, when you're flowing through yoga and you stop for just a moment at, the full expression of a pose before you move, and you find a place of stillness before you move into the next pose. When you're reading something out loud and you stop for just a moment to catch your breath or to allow a moment of silence for reflection. There's lots of different ways where we slow down and stop and wait, right? You're crossing a street. You stop at the sidewalk and you look both ways before you go across the street there. The solar eclipse is a new beginning, but it's opposite Saturn. Slow down, stop, wait, commune with spirit. Make sure you have everything that is set. It's with the South Node. What is releasing? What needs to come back forward from the past maybe? Where is the history within what is going on here? The equinox moment. We're coming from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year. You are now invited to start moving towards that period of rest. Think about winter time. We spend a lot more time resting and caring for ourselves. There's less daylight, there's more rest time. Our body just naturally wants to sleep more when it's dark more. That's part of the natural rhythms within our body here. And then this grand air trine, plugging into a circuit, slowing down so that way you can allow space for the mental connections to come through here and whatever the messages are that are coming through. Mars and Pluto. Power, courage, bravery. Is it a struggle, or is it that we are overcoming challenges to tap into our own personal power? Things kind of like that. So yeah, cool things this week. There's a lot. There's a ton. I pulled an oracle card first, and I thought it was really interesting that the Sky Father came up here. So I was literally thinking about the air trine and this plugging into a circuit, plugging into a network, this electrical feeling kept coming in. And yeah, you have the electrical Sky Father here. Like this looks like Zeus, and there's literally lightning that is all around. So trust in the unknown, trust in the messages that are coming through, trust in the connections that are coming through. I pulled that before the tarot card. And usually I pulled a tarot card first. I'm not exactly sure why, so I guess that electrical feeling just really needed to come through strongly. The Five of Pentacles coming through here. So this is illuminating the struggle or the difficulty or the overcoming or that which leads to some sort of struggle or some sort of difficulty, or the Five of Pentacles is not without difficulty. It's not without struggle. It's not without something to overcome. It's not without, it's an awareness of the physical blockages and the things that are holding us back. Excuse me. That can be Saturn in opposition to the solar eclipse that we have here. However, if the Five of Pentacles, if you notice, he's focused on the little thing that's attached to his fur here, but he doesn't notice the big tree that is growing behind him, right? If you think of the Rider-Waite deck, you have two people that are walking in front of like a church window. They're walking past it in like a winter storm, and their clothes are ragged and torn, and they don't even notice they're walking right by a lit church window. So they don't even notice the resources that are right behind them as they are moving forward, lacking what they need or lacking what they feel like they, what they don't have. But behind them, there's something that is growing, right? Solar eclipses, when you have solar or a lunar eclipse, you have the light changing within the sun and the moon, right? So you have the sun being eclipsed, you have the moon being eclipsed. So there is a level of hidden or unseen within the eclipses. So even if it feels like there's struggle, even if it feels like there is turmoil, Mars has been in the sign of Libra. Saturn has had a lot to do with our lunar cycles lately. Don't forget the tree that's growing in the background. Don't think about the abundance that's there, right? So that slowing down as we're moving through life, even if we're focused on the difficulty thing, the hard things or the struggles or the turmoil or the things that are holding us down, because those are definitely a part of life for sure. Don't forget that thing that is growing in the background. Mars is going to move out of Libra this week. It's going to move into the sign of Scorpio. It's going to improve within its dignity. The light half of the year is coming to an end. That can be a Five of Pentacles within its own right, right? Like, you know, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, a lot of people do get very down or have like, are just very discouraged when summer is done and over with. But what is the benefit? We're allowed to slow down. We're invited to maybe spend a little more time at our home, maybe spend a little bit more time with our family. Maybe we learn something new, or, you know, we pick up a new project or something like that. So yeah, lots of cool energy here. And I just think the space to commune with spirit with all of this going on here is just a lovely take on all of this. So I hope that you all kind of find that too. So I know I've talked a lot, but I feel like there was a lot to say here. So thank you for giving me the space to do so. I'm going to go ahead and take a deep breath here. So what is new coming your way? What is completing within your realm? Do you see a simultaneous new beginning or opening that is coming from something else closing? It's that cliche, when one door closes, another door opens, right? Or chapter 1 in a book leads to chapter 2 in a book, or the finishing of volume 1 leads to volume 2, right? It's not always putting it in the trash can. Sometimes it is. We commune with spirit, our higher selves, spirits that are around us, the Great Spirit. It helps get through all of that. And it helps to decipher it too, because when there's all of this energy going on at the same time, it can be really hard to decipher and it can feel really confusing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring the intention down here, and then we have our intentional candle as always. I use white for the intentional candles because it brings in a level of clarity, purification, and a new beginning, a new start. We do these meditations on Sunday at the beginning of the week. We're looking at the astrology for the full week, right? The intention comes out, the weekly video, and then we have our meditation, and it's all in preparation for the following week. So we're trying to create a blank slate for the relationship to create. So white. So that way you can bring in whatever you need into this meditation. And you can also change the color of the candle to whatever color fits you. You know, if you are trying to have a purple week, then you can bring purple into it. All right, I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase. When I recite the phrase, I encourage you to say it with me in whatever capacity you are able to. Once more, the intention is, there is space to commune with spirit. There is space to commune with spirit. All right, I'm going to light the intentional candle. As I do, the flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. There is space to commune with spirit. There is space to commune with spirit. If you haven't already, find a nice, comfortable position, seated, laying, whatever works for you. If you're ready to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. If you're not quite ready to do so, that's okay. Perhaps you may just soften your gaze, allow your eyes to fall where they naturally fall, and try not to look too intently towards anything. Maybe just gazing beyond the space in front of you. As you begin to relax your eyes, your body begins to relax. As your body begins to relax, your attention comes to your breath. As your attention comes to your breath, you may feel inclined to start changing or altering the quality of your breath. Perhaps you want to slow it down. Perhaps you change the frequency. For just a moment, let's attempt to refrain from making any changes or alterations to the breath. Simply observing and acknowledging how the breath naturally flows in and out of your lungs and in and out of your being. Observing, acknowledging, and walking beside the breath that you came here to this space with today. The quality of your breath, the efficiency of your breath, however good or bad, relative terms, the breath is or feels to you at the moment. That breath is a result of the accumulation of all of your experiences, all of your emotions, all of your thoughts. It's a compilation of your life up to this moment. Just as our experiences through life wax and wane, so does our breath. When we take a moment to sit with our breath where it's at before changing and altering it, simply walking besides where our own level of energy is in this moment, there's a way in which we are honoring the path that has brought us to this moment. When you honor your breath, when you honor your current level of energy, you are honoring the path of your life that has brought you this far. So not only are we observing and acknowledging, but we are honoring our own path. We are honoring and communing with our own spirit. However, as we continue to connect with our breath, and after we've spent a moment sitting with where we are at this very moment, we may decide to start to deepen the breath, deepen the connection, deepen the energetic and oxygen exchange within our being and how it connects to the space around us. So we take a moment to go from observing and acknowledging and honoring to deepening and expanding the breath. We find ourselves in a moment of pivot, a moment of shift, and a moment of redirection. Just like we find this week astrologically. Deepening the inhale, deepening the exhale, allowing your goal to be simply that each inhale will be slightly deeper, slightly longer, and bringing in slightly more air than the one that came before it. Allowing your goal for the exhale to be that each breath of release lets go of slightly more air, slightly more energy, and releases slightly more than the exhale that came before it. Today, the solar eclipse, the new moon in the sign of Virgo, there was a seeding moment and an initiation. An initiation into change, an initiation into a new energy that may have a familiar feel, yet something is new, something is different. Virgo, the earth sign of Mercury. Mercury, the one who moves between the material and the spiritual world, the messenger and the guider of souls that brings us from the physical world to the non-physical world as this incarnation expires and we move on from this physical life. Virgo is a place of the messenger, a place of communicating and communing with spirit. And just as Mercury, Hermes, is the guider of souls, ushering us from this lifetime into the next space, Virgo ushers us from the light half of the year into a new space. The light is no longer dominant. The masculine, assertive, yang energy begins to decline, and we move towards the feminine, receptive yin half of the year. Time stands still, the moment of the equinox. When we pause, what is the message that comes through? When we slow down at the end of the day, we review our thoughts, our emotions, and our experiences of the day. We learn from that. Here, we are given a similar moment within the astrological year. Slow down, assess, and rest. Rest does not mean inactivity. However, a change of pace, a change of activity may be at hand. The messages that come to you may be for you alone, or they may be for you to share with a greater population or group. As the sun moves across the sign boundary into the sign of Libra, opposing Neptune, tapping into that otherworldly, non-physical energy. We commune with our own spirit and the Great Spirit. We find ourselves in a place of mental connection, both in the physical and the non-physical world. Ideas, conversations, enlightenments, messages, downloads. Allow it all to come in. As Mars moves into the sign of Scorpio, digging deep down into the trenches. As we slow down, we can see what's in the nooks and crannies of Scorpio's lair. Our eyes adjust to the darkness and we can see better than before. What is within the nooks and crannies of your life at the moment? What is peering out at you and simply waiting for you to respond? There is much space and invitations to commune with spirit of all kinds this week. So at the end of this meditation, I ask you, what are you looking to commune with this week? Where is the connection that you are looking for? Because there's a wide variety available here. Initiated into a new space, initiated into a new cycle, initiated into a new process. Meanwhile, all of the outer planets are being activated. Profound shifts are possible for some. What is the spirit that you are looking to commune with this week? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for sitting in this space with me, for communing with me, and with the planets and the gods and the goddesses and the spirit that is around all of us. Openings, closings, expansions, digging deep. I think for a lot, there's things to be uncovered this week. Thank you everybody for joining. Nikita, Tom, Susan, Jason, Melissa, Kevin, Mary, everybody for commenting. Thank you. It's good to see all of you here. Eclipse days. Rounding that out. I hope everybody has a blessed fall equinox day. Sun moves signs this week. Mars moves signs this week. Outer planets are activated. There's a lot going on. Mars and Pluto. Yeah. So, all these little in-between spaces, all of these transition moments, they allow us to connect. They allow us to connect with spirit. But in addition, with so much going on at one time, I think it's always good to come back to center, come back to source, whether that's Godhead source, whether that's your own source within you, or both. Coming back to the ancestors that guide you, the guides and teachers, the angels. I am one that firmly believes that we all have that support available to us all the time. We just have to remember to tap into it. And maybe some of these moments will remind us and show us that we can tap into them this week with the equinox moment, with, even all the Pluto action. Mars and Pluto is very, very investigative and is not superficial whatsoever. It's digging deep down into the layers. So if we're looking for support, Mars and Pluto are not going to stop until they find it, right? They're going to keep searching. They're going to keep digging down into the trenches and looking down into the nooks and the crannies there. So, yeah, cool things, not without struggle, right? Not without difficulty, not without maybe questioning. But when the Five of Pentacles pops up and we are focused on the difficult things and the struggles and what isn't working well, let's remember what is growing in the background here, right? And then trusting in the universe, the Sky Father that is always there guiding us at all times. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. If you have not already seen the weekly video, you can find that here on YouTube. Next Friday, you will see the new weekly intention for next week. And then next Saturday, the weekly video will come out. And then I will see you back here next Sunday. So thank you, everybody. Take care, rest well, and care for yourself. Bye, everybody.